Hello, and welcome back to The Independent Pianist. I'm your host, as usual, Cole Anderson. We continue on with our overview of Schubert's Opus 142 Impromptus today with the second impromptu in A-flat. And this piece is a wonderful inspiration. I love how successfully Schubert has achieved a reconciliation of opposing emotional worlds in this piece. Schubert travels from the intimately poetic to the grandly orchestral in the space of just a few moments. And for many composers, these sort of stark juxtapositions would need a great deal of time to justify in their musical rhetoric. But Schubert is able to do it in the space, as I was saying, of just a few bars, moving from one to the other really effortlessly. This piece is also one of the best arguments in favor of the idea that Schubert may have had a four-movement sonata-like design in mind when he wrote these Opus 142 Impromptus, as it is in a very typical valse noble style. And Schubert oftentimes used the valse noble as well as other typical Austrian variants on the waltz, like the Ländler, in place of the typical minuet and trio or scherzo and trio in a typical four-movement sonata design. Schubert uses a very characteristic rhythmic device in this piece as well, at least characteristic for him, which is an accent combined with a pause or hold on the second beat. And this occurs frequently in Schubert's works in general, but especially in the impromptus. So in this piece, it not only connects the outer sections to the inner section, it also provides a link between the different impromptus of the Opus 90 and the Opus 142 set. So for instance, Opus 90 number 2 uses very prominently the same pattern of second beat accents throughout the piece in its left hand. There's a similar kind of pattern in the left hand of Opus 90 number 4 as well throughout the opening section of that piece. It's a little bit more subtle than in the Opus 90 Impromptus, but this same left hand pattern also occurs in the other impromptus in Opus 142 as well. And there are other relationships that you can find between this impromptu and others from the Opus 90 or Opus 142 impromptus. The relationship between the figuration of the middle section of this impromptu and the famous Opus 90 number 3 in G-flat major is also probably no accident. So these various relationships among the impromptus tends to reinforce the idea that all 8 impromptus were really written as a kind of loose cycle, along with the fact that all 8 impromptus are written in flat keys. So we have C minor, E flat major, G flat major, A flat major, B flat major, and F minor. If you also note some of the modulations within the pieces, you'll find as well the keys of C sharp minor, E flat minor, F sharp minor, A flat minor, and B flat minor. So every single black note, major and minor key, is represented in this series of 8 impromptus. So beyond that, there isn't that much to be said about this piece, which is distinguished even among Schubert's works by its radiant simplicity. Schubert does find other subtle ways to link the sound world of the outer sections to the middle section. He touches briefly on G-flat minor or F-sharp minor in both sections, and he includes the same kind of rhythmical second beat emphasis that I was talking about before. There's another kind of subtle parallel as well. At the beginning of the second half of the A section, he makes a sudden shift to a loud orchestral kind of effect. And he does the exact same thing in the B section as well, the trio section. So despite its simplicity and its seemingly improvised feeling, it's actually very well organized. And this is interesting, I think, because we usually think of Schubert as kind of a sleepwalker among composers, and that's actually a positive quality to his writing, his kind of writing on impulse. But actually we can see that he was very cognizant of structural concerns, even when he was writing relatively short pieces that were supposed to be improvisatory in nature, like the impromptus. From a performance aspect, one thing I do usually recommend to students who are learning this piece is to be very mindful of the tempo marking at the beginning of this piece, allegretto. You usually hear a very solemn and, for me, a somewhat too slow performance of this impromptu. It's very natural, because people are obviously very moved by the kind of hushed reverence that you get at the opening and are tempted to play into that mood a little bit by using a tempo that to my ear sounds more like an andante or adagio. Then they will usually speed up significantly in the middle section to compensate, because the middle section doesn't really sound right unless you have a fairly flowing tempo. So usually I think a better effect is created if the middle section and the opening section are at the same tempo. So Schubert has written into the piece an acceleration of movement in the B section by using triplet eighth notes. So speeding up more actually distorts this relationship. Also, if you try a slightly more flowing tempo for the A section, I think you'll find that it offsets slightly the inherently solemn character of the music and introduces a wonderful feeling of quiet joy and freedom. And for me, I think this is an integral part of this piece, this kind of swing that the rhythm has. And if the tempo is too slow, we kind of lose that swing. We get this solemn beauty, but the flow of the rhythm is kind of arrested in every measure. Too much, I think. That being said, of course, if you love it at that slower tempo, don't be ashamed to play it that way. There are many beautiful recordings that take this piece at a very slow tempo. But I think it is at least worth trying out the more flowing tempo, at least knowing that it's a possibility, and see if it can suit you. So thank you very much. We will shortly be completing this set of impromptus, and I think I might go on and do the Opus 90 impromptus too, because they're so lovely. And also I'm aiming to finish off the Miroir set as well in the next few weeks, so you can stay tuned for that. Please do consider supporting the channel if you can. One way to do that is through www.patreon.com/independentpianist. Or you can also make a one-time donation through PayPal or Revolut. I have links to that in the description box as well. But if you are not able to support the channel financially, you can still support the channel by just subscribing and hitting the like button and staying tuned for more great music next week.